Hello and welcome. We're in my garden today, and it's been about a week since we last checked in, so I just wanted to give everyone a quick update on how things are progressing. The tomatoes are starting to get a little bit heavy, so I wanted to give them the support they need, and this is just an interim solution. To support the tomatoes in the long term, there's going to be an overhead framework with tomato hooks hanging down with string, and then on the string there's these little clips that hold the tomato up onto the string. But in the meantime, I'm just using a piece of bamboo, and the bamboo is gonna help keep the tomato from lopping over from its own weight. The tomato still has all these little side shoots growing. So at the base of every leaf like this, you're gonna notice what they refer to as a sucker growing from the base of each leaf. And if you look at this leaf right here, this leaf has an extremely big, robust sucker growing on it. And I guess when the time comes to prune this plant and take off all the suckers, I'll probably go ahead and leave this side shoot and start pruning this plant as a two-stem plant. But all these other suckers, I'm going to be taking these off, and then it's going to be managed as a two-stem plant. I love that smell when you touch the tomato plant and you get that very aromatic tomato smell on your hands. This other tomato is also growing pretty nicely. It's already got this first little signs of flowers and fruit producing. But here too, I've got a couple side shoots developing. Here's a sucker that's probably going to have to come off. And if you look at this sucker over here, this sucker also seems to be a real prominent side shoot. When it grows almost as vigorously as the main stem, sometimes that's the one side shoot that you want to keep if you're going to manage your tomato as a two-stem plant. So that's probably what I'll end up doing with this one. As for all the other tomatoes, they're all coming along pretty nicely. These are the ones that were covered up last time. Last time I was filming, these were covered up in preparation for a storm. They were still very small, but there is more rain coming tonight, and I think they're big enough to weather the weather now, if that makes sense. So I'm going to be leaving them alone. Another thing that's kind of been a little bit of a thorn in my side has been all of these little plants that are popping up out of the compost that I use to plant all my vegetables. These, I am assuming, are either pumpkin, most likely pumpkin, or maybe cantaloupe, because I know there was a whole bunch of seeds in my compost, and they are starting to pop out. So I'm gonna have to cut all that back at some point. I might leave a few to grow, but they're probably gonna have to go. Here you can see this is the only place where I've got two tomatoes growing side by side, but chances are this little one's gonna go and just leave the larger one to continue on its own. So that's pretty much it for my tomatoes. On to peppers. Down here in the pepper section, you'll remember if you watched the previous garden update, there were two plants that I had left to grow pepper pods. And one of them is right here growing its pepper, and the other one is right there growing its pepper. All the other peppers have had their flowers removed, and the aim was to allow those pepper plants to work more on establishing good strong roots rather than trying to produce pepper pods and seeds. So take the focus off reproduction basically, and try to convince the plants to focus their energy on root growth and strengthening themselves. So these plants are finally getting big enough to see this distinct Y split that you see on pepper plants. It's always cool to see when that starts happening, and that only happens on plants that have not been topped off. This whole row that you see here, these plants were not topped off, so these plants are all starting to develop that distinctive Y split on their tops, and that's because I left these plants in this row right here to just continue growing naturally for the most part, with the exception of just knocking the flowers off. Here though, I'm using a pruning technique known as topping, and when you top off a plant, you can see right there, you can tell what I've done. I've actually cut off the top of the plant, and what starts to happen after you do that is that the plant starts to produce little side shoots, and you can see evidence of that happening here. At the base of each of these leaves, you can see a little side shoot starting to pop out. Rather than having one main stem continue, what you're really going to end up with is multiple main stems, and you're going to end up with a much bushier plant that way, at least in theory. That's the idea behind topping peppers. So now over in this third row of peppers, this is an example of a plant that was given to me already where it was topped. So here you can see where the original stem of the plant used to be, and then here at the base of this leaf you started to get this little side shoot that's really taking off. Same thing down here at the base of this leaf, you've got this side shoot taking off, and now you've also got that distinctive split happening on the tip of each of those. So each of these side shoots is becoming basically a new main stem, and this is a pretty good example of what you're aiming for when you top off a pepper plant. The main objective with that is to end up with a plant that's a lot bushier, and ultimately you usually end up with a stem that's much thicker, and it makes the plant much more robust and capable of handling rough weather and stuff like that. So it's a nice thick main stem for a sturdy plant. So the other thing that's rampant across the entire garden is just tons of little weeds starting to pop up everywhere. So that's going to be one of my main next objectives. As much as I want to get the overhead framework built so I can start supporting my plants vertically, I think that the highest priority at this point is to put down some sort of a weed barrier. So that's something to look forward to. But that's it for today. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little check-in on my garden. Seems to me like things are progressing pretty nicely. We'll keep an eye on things, and hopefully it's continued good progress. So if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. I always appreciate that. And also consider subscribing to the channel, becoming a regular viewer. Your comments and your input are always welcome. So hopefully we'll see you again back here next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.